Okay.
Should we work out the schedule first, just to make sure we know what we're doing for the get together? What do you think?
So on Sunday, August 30th, 1st, instead of a Zoom session, we'll do a live session at 12:30 at Griggs Park.
Mm-hmm.
It's bring your own snacks or desserts, whatever you like, and we'll actually do some text study of the actual flood in person, comparing the two different flood stories, how the floods were developed, and again, looking with an eye towards, does this continue to bolster the thought that one flood story is more oriented towards a coastal people, and one flood story is oriented more towards an inland people.
Maybe you could ask people to bring chairs. I'll try to bring two.
Yeah, there is a picnic table. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to get it.
So that's why it's better to bring your own
chairs. You can bring your chairs, throw them in your car.
I know Catherine can't, because she's
I'll put in
doesn't
a
have a
snack
car.
table. I'll put in a snack table so we can put our goodies on a table
And I'll try to bring two chairs.
in case
All right.
the table's filled.
So moving on,
All right.
let's look at how the flood got going. And we looked at how Noah was born. We looked at the generations that led to Noah. We looked at some of the reasons why the flood developed. And again, we saw last week that in one story, people are becoming just too violent, too perhaps self-centered, whatever. In the other story, it was the mating of the divine elements with the human elements creating the heroes of yore, so a very different approach. In the Y story, you'll notice it's a fairly simple, just a few verses that prepares us for the flood.
Yep.
The E story is a lot more complicated that prepares us for the flood. And so we'll look at that. First of all, why Noah? In the Y story, and also you'll notice that in the E story, chapter 6, verse 8, the Y story, chapter 6, verse 8 is followed immediately by chapter 7, verse 1. Everything else is in the E story, except for verses 11 and 12, which are broken up as we've seen in the past. Those verses actually were probably written by the editor-redactor. They connect Noah's name back to Lamech, saying Noah will be the one who will, Noach, give us rest and surcease from our difficulties.
Well, where is 11 and 12?
It's not here because it's not in EP or in Y, it's in R. It's in
all. Oh, so it exists. It's just not there.
It's in a different section. Because otherwise you have Noach here, and then 9 and 10, Noach again, with a different story, but could be seen by putting them together this way, that Noach found favor in God's eyes, and 9 and 10, this is why Noach found favor in God's eyes. But meanwhile, we had no connection of Noach to the previous generations, and 11, 12 gave us that. So again, you'll see, verse 17 of the story is over here in the flood starts, and not back here in the preparation for the flood. So you'll notice it goes 16, 18.
Yeah.
And again, that's the cutting and pasting, and probably the editor-redactor's attempt to distract us from the fact that there are really two stories going on here.
Actually, 3 to make what you said on R.
Right, 3 if you include the editor-redactor, but that's not really a story. That's more bridges.
Okay.
Bridges that are built between the two stories that are being put together. So just in the Y story, we have Noah. We've got all of these problems that are arising in the post-Adam, pre-Noah generations. And Noah finds favor in God's eyes because everybody else is really rotten. And so it makes sense to go from 6:8 to 7:1. Noah finds favor in God's eyes, and God goes to Noah and says, get on this ark. I'm making an ark for you. And this is what you have to bring to the ark. 7 of each of the pure animals, the clean animals, that is the animals that are going to be used for sacrifices in the future, and 2 of each of the animals that are not going to be used for sacrifices in the future. And the same thing, because you've got 4-legged critters that are being used for sacrifices and winged critters that are being used for sacrifices, and you bring 7 pairs of each of those. The Hebrew, and I've translated it literally, the Hebrew for the beasts of the field say ish ve'isha,
Yeah.
a man and his wife.
Where are you? I'm looking for
Verse 2.
Okay.
7, and it doesn't say 7 pairs, it says 7, 7. Sheva, Sheva. 7 of the males and 7 of the females, of the animals that are going to be used for sacrifices. But it says, in those animals, bring the ish ve'isha, the man and the woman. But the birds, it says, zachar u'nekeva, the male and the female. And that may indicate the thoughts that the beasts of the field, which are much more supervised and observed by the biblical author of these stories, saw how they mate.
Mm-hmm.
And the birds, they don't actually get to see them mate. So they have a some kind of monogamous or polygamous relation, marriage of beasts, and birds just sort of do it. So birds just have males and females, and males and females. So they probably didn't tell the stories of the birds and the bees back then to their children. They told the story of the rams and the ewes. And they tried to explain it to their children, but in the inland people, they didn't need to explain it to the children because the children saw it from a very early age.
And what does it mean when it says you will take 7, 7, a man and his woman, 7 men and 7 women?
Exactly.
Oh,
Rather than, I mean, and often you'll see in translation 7 pairs,
oh, okay.
but the Hebrew doesn't say 7 pairs, it says 7, 7.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 of these and 7 of those.
Rabbi, I have a question. You said it's about before, you said found favor. Is chen also grace?
Yes. But it's, chen is matzati chen be'enecha, if I have found favor in your eyes. So it's usually a word that's used in relationship to some kind of pleasingness that would lead one to ask for a favor.
Mm.
So whenever somebody approaches someone and says, I've got a favor to ask of you, if I found favor in your eyes, if I found chen be'enecha. So this usually is a polite way of asking or requesting something from another person. So I use favor because you're asking for a favor, so therefore you found favor, and favor gets to mean both of those words in English. Grace is not quite the same kind of English word.
Yeah.
Because my Hebrew name is Chana, that's why I just.
Yeah, so yeah, Chana is a favorable person.
Mm.
Oh, that's nice. I thought it was a graceful person.
Yeah, no, not certainly not grace in the idea of graceful.
No, I know. It's a grace.
Full of grace, which is different from graceful.
Which which is when I found that out, I then liked my Hebrew name. Until then, I didn't like my Hebrew name.
So yeah, your Hebrew name says you're a favorable person.
This is true.
And that's it. And then 9 again makes sense in the E story if we again just follow what came before, which was things got bad and Noah was born, and Noah is a righteous and pure or simple man in his generation.
Yep.
And that leads to a lot of discussion about what does it mean to be righteous? What does it mean to be tam, pure and simple? And generally, when you're talking about sacrificial animals, it means unblemished.
Yeah.
So he has no blemish on his soul, perhaps. And what does it mean, bidorotav, in his generation?
Yeah.
And there often this similar language is used about Abraham. And Abraham is also in his generation. And so there's a comparison of Noah in his generation and Abraham in his generation. And depending on who you want to give your chen, give your favor, Noah's better than Abraham because Noah is pure and righteous in spite of his generation compared to everybody else. He chose to be righteous. Abraham is pure and righteous amidst his generation when everybody was righteous. So then Noah's better than Abraham. Or Noah is pure and righteous compared to his generation. And that was a very low bar to meet. As opposed to Abraham, who was righteous even compared to his generation, who were already righteous. He was even more righteous.
Right.
Yeah, so you can see both ways.
Exactly. In fact, the commentaries go both ways, depending on which rabbi is trying to give which favor to which person.
Oh.
And then it says Noah walked with Elohim, God or the gods. And Abraham is going to say, Abraham, God says, walk before me. And again, does that mean Abraham precedes the gods and Noah evidences God's with him, which would make Noah better? Or Noah has to walk with God like a toddler walking, holding on to the parent's hand. And Abraham is more mature and can walk ahead of the parents, trusted to stop at streets and driveways.
And this whole thing with the plural of gods, this before they made it monotheistic?
Well, yes, and we do have Torah texts that mean the gods of other people, all the gods. And we just got the high God.
I mean, it sounds like when Abraham hit the scene, it started becoming one God more.
No, not really.
No?
No, even Moses says, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you among the gods.
So what were the gods then? Angels?
No, all the other gods of all the Egyptian gods. And the whole story is Moses pits Moses's God against the Egyptians' gods.
Okay. So comparison.
Yeah, so we don't know biblically when we switch from gods to Yud He Vav He is the God, the only God. We get that in Deuteronomy last week, Adonai Echad. But again, we don't know if God is one, meaning the only, or God is the one conglomerate of all the other gods that people thought that they were worshiping. God is the whole, and all of the gods were the parts. So we really don't know what the original biblical author storytellers were saying. and therefore we can't be sure how to translate Elohim in the context of the language of the time. And Noah gives birth to 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japhet.
Mhm.
And then we have a bridge. And then now God says to Noah, I'm going to destroy everybody. The end of all flesh is before me. The earth is full of violence because of them. I behold the corruption that is on the earth. So make yourself an ark. And verses 14, 15, 16, 18, verses 14, 15, 16
Yeah.
are the blueprints for the ark. The parallel on the other side is, here's an ark. And that's it, 7 verse 1. Come to, and all of your house, to the ark. The ark is for you. And so if we read them as separate stories, the indication in the Y story is God made the ark.
Mm. Yeah.
Here's the ark. Here's what you have to bring on it. And again, that would make sense, I think, for an inland people who were not boat builders. I mean, you go to the people in Portsmouth on the coast, and you have a boat building exhibit of how they built their boats. You go up into Manchester, New Hampshire, or Barrington, or inland, or Nashua, and you say, hey, build me a boat. They say, what? How? Who builds boats? I just go to the store and I buy one. So here's the blueprints. Make it out of gopher wood. Put rooms in it. Pitch the inside and the outside. Caulk it up. And here's how big it will be. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. And then put skylights and windows into it. And you will make it exactly to the measurements that I have given you. And you'll put an opening on the side, portholes, and underneath, and then a second story and a third story. So this is a cruise ship that you're building. And we know that 300 cubits is about 450 feet. So
Wow.
it's a football field
Wow.
plus.
Wow.
It's bigger even than a Canadian football field.
Wow.
So it's about the size, almost the size of a football stadium,
Oh my.
Wow.
which he's building by himself or with his 3 sons.
How long did it take him?
Well, we don't know. God says, do it. And then God says, there's going to be a flood. So you better get it ready in time. And in the Y story, God says, here's what you get on the ark. And then the Y story ends, and verse 4, you'll notice on the Y story is missing.
Mhm.
Oh
Verse
yeah.
4 is next week, the flood starts.
Oh.
So virtually no time at all in the Y story. God says, I'm going to put an end to everybody. I'm going to do a flood. Get on this ark. Here it is. And take the following animals with you. 7 pairs of each of the kosher animals, the sacrificial animals. And the flood starts in verse 4. And so Noah then says, okay, I'm ready. Here we go. Let's everybody on board. Meanwhile, in the E story, God says, here's the blueprints, build an ark. And verse 18, then I will establish a covenant with you, and you will all come to the ark, your sons, your wives, your sons' wives, which we never heard of before this, nor did we hear of Noah's wife before this. And I want you to take 2 of every kind of animal to keep it alive with you. And here it's male and female, Zachar and Nekeva, because these are not herding people.
Oh,
These are just people with animals and birds that they see all around. And notice here we save not only the birds, but all the creeping things, anything that lives on the ground, bring 1 pair of everything. No 7 pairs. And again, my thesis here is that the coastal people did not have a kashrut system of separating themselves from their neighbors according to what they eat that the inland nomadic people would have had or did have. So we're just saving everything so we can repopulate when we get done with the ark, when we get done with the flood. And again, if you're going on a cruise ship and you know about shipping systems, you better remember to bring provisions along with you.
yeah.
Verse 21, take all the food that will be eaten, and for you and for everything else that is good for eating. And remember, what did everybody eat? Animals as well as people prior to the flood?
No, they were
Vegetarian.
vegetarians before.
Exactly. They only are vegetarian
Yeah.
prior to the flood. And so what do they have to bring aboard? Vegetarian food.
Her garden.
Yes, bring your little local garden or harvest everything from your garden and bring it on board with you. And surprise, surprise, Noah does everything that God says. So verse 22 of chapter 6 and verse 5 of chapter 7 are full parallels to each other, except that God's commandments on the chapter 7 rather, the why story, are very simple. Here's an ark, get on board and bring 7 pairs of all of the animals that you do. Because we know they were already sacrificing because of the Cain and Abel story. What about all the other animals? Who cares? In the inland, the only animals you really need to save are the animals that you're going to need. And food for them? I don't know. We never carry provisions with us when we travel from place to place. We figure there'll be provisions. We travel until we find another provisioning place. We travel until the shrubs and the grasses are growing someplace else. Also, how long is the flood going to last in the pre-flood preparation? Apparently not long.
We don't know, yeah.
Get on and have a nice little trip. The water will go up, the water will go down. Meanwhile, the E story, we're much more aware of flooding when we're on the coast.
Yep.
You're aware of flooding if you're on a major river like the Nile. But if you're on the inland wadis of the Negev and the Judean hills and the Israel area, or possibly even the Jordan Valley, you don't get the same kind of flooding. And on rivers, you get flooding, but it comes and it goes.
Mhm.
You get a good storm tide on the coastal area, and that flooding is going to last quite a while. But you put them together as one story, and you go from 6-8 to 6-9, 10, 11, 12 bridge, 13 through 22, and then chapter 7. And it makes sense in the full story once they're combined. Noah builds the ark, and God says, okay, you built it, now get on board. And by the way, not just the pairs of all the other animals, but 7 pairs of the special animals. And you put them together as one story and said, oh, of course. But you look at them at their probable original stories and say, oh, of course. It's a different of course.
So, that already, when they say 7 pairs, that intimates a long time with all the sacrifices that are going to be made.
Yeah, that certainly indicates that you want to make sure that as soon as you get off the ark, you don't sacrifice one of the sacrificial animals when you only brought one pair of them along.
Right. Yeah.
But the E story is much more, this is an extensive process.
Yeah.
If I have forewarning of a major, major, major entire coastal area flood that I'm now going to need to ride out, I'm going to need a significant boat to ride it out.
Mm.
So Noah does according to what God commands in both stories. What will we see next week? Well, notice 6:17 suddenly is here,
Oh.
followed by 7:6. 7:4 was in the middle of the pre-flood story, followed by 7:7. And again, when we read it next time, we'll look at it and say, okay, what we saw this week, the preparation for the flood, followed by the flood, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
Or the preparation for the flood, followed by the building of the ark, followed by the warning that the flood is coming, followed by, we know how old Noah is because the coastal people are going to be much more concerned with numbers. We've seen in all of our stories. And we get how old Noah was when this happens, which happens to be 600 years old. What we don't get is how old was Noah when he got the first warning about it.
Because that would say how long it took him to make the
Exactly.
Yeah. Well.
And we're going to find out how high above the highest mountain the flood was in the flood story, which is going to be more important for the one group rather than the other group. And I will leave you to worry about that for when we get there.
sounds like a plan.
All right, so we will meet next week online with the actual start of the flood part 1. And then we'll meet in person at Griggs Park on the 31st in 2 weeks with the conclusion of the flood. And again, we'll be looking at, as you read them, and all of the material is posted through the end of August on the website. If you look at it, you'll see that, again, read them in 2 separate stories, then read them together, see how you get a whole different point of view on those. When we read them next week and then the following week, we'll be paying attention to various aspects of how high, how long, how does the flood happen? And you might have some guesses as to how an inland people would think the flood happened, as opposed to how a coastal people
Oh, yes.
think that the flood happened.
Yeah.
And we'll see if that bears out to help either negate or bolster my theory.
I'm going to try to be, though I have a training at my temple, so we'll see.
Aha.